Welcome, friends. Welcome, everyone, to Your Health Matters. Great to have you joining us. My name's Karl Sterling. I'm thrilled to be your host. Thanks for listening because you're putting us at the top of the charts for show ratings, and we are blessed, and I'm grateful for this. We've had a lot that we've talked about in relation to nutrition, a whole lot. We've had some, world-class leaders in the field as experts there. We've also had people in the movement and exercise arena talking with us there. Today, we're going to talk about some different things. And being 63 years old myself, I have to tell you that I never thought I'd get to be this old, first of all, but thankfully I am. And I love getting older. But one of the things I find is a challenge sometimes is maintaining mental resilience. My social connections are real strong, but we see in the clinic here at Neuromotor Training, sometimes connections are not strong. It is really important for our mental, emotional health and longevity. Anxiety and depression is not uncommon. Negative thought patterns, breaking out of those, so important. Stress and burnout for some of us. Self-compassion, something that some of us never get comfortable doing, but it's really beneficial if we can do that. Memory and focus and finding purpose for those who have retired, who can't seem to find purpose. To talk with us and enlighten us and educate us on this today, we have a very special guest. I'm thrilled to have Dr. Judy Ho with me today. She's a triple board certified and licensed clinical and forensic neuropsychologist, a tenured associate professor at Pepperdine University. You've probably seen her on television, and if you haven't, you might have seen her on a podcast. She's a published author. Dr. Judy Ho, it's great to have you with me. Thanks so much for joining.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me on your show, Karl. So excited to be here.
Wonderful to have you. And, I've been following you for quite a while. I really love your podcast. I love that a lot of the videos are maybe 20 minutes and you always have a theme of answering a question from somebody, a listener, that's really cool. I love that. So maybe I'll do something like that in the future if I can ever figure out how to manage my time. You consult me there too?
Well, time management is difficult for everyone, I feel like. And even for us to schedule our interview, I felt like we had a time management exercise, but I'm glad to be here.
Well, yeah, I had to cancel on you and, you're busy. You're doing so much. So, I am curious. We have communicated. Do you have any suggestions on, let's say, managing mental resilience as we age? And our listener base here is largely, I'd say, is 55, 60 years old and up. And what we find is in this population, and listeners, please don't be offended that I say this, but it's a fact. And a lot of you are doing really, really well, and I'm proud of you. But there are people who are struggling, and I've been there, being formerly very obese and very unhealthy. My mental, as I was, now I'm fine, but there's some people really struggling out there, and the older they get, the harder it gets. Mental resilience. How can we dig in and help ourselves here, Dr. Judy?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that mental resilience is just like physical resilience, and that it's kind of a never-ending pursuit, right? So you don't really get to a point where you're like, okay, now my mental resilience is great, and then you don't have to work on it anymore. Just like your physical health, you got to do a little bit of something every day within your capacity and whatever you have going on that day. Everything can be tailored to that. Sometimes people will say, well, I'm too busy to focus on my mental self-care. But mental self-care can be just remembering to take deep breaths for 1 minute of your day, on the day that's really busy. And then on a day when you have a little bit more time, then you have the luxury of spending more time doing something that's relaxing and enjoyable to you. But I think that the first thing to remember is that for all of us, it's a daily pursuit. And depending on what you have going on that day, be gentle with yourself. It doesn't have to look the same way every day, or you don't have to give it 10 out of 10 every single day. But it is essentially a skill that you keep building over time.
So how can we rebuild this? What can you give us maybe an example? Breathing, that's something I started doing a while back, a couple years ago, and I make sure I do it, especially before I go to sleep. I find if I do this certain breathing thing, I tend to I'm out. But but consciously, especially in the morning when I first wake up. As all you know who listen on a regular basis, I do Karl's 10-minute yoga in the morning, stretching and yoga, and I breathe, and it just feels so good. Do you have any other suggestions for the mental side of things?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really helpful to have routines because your brain likes routines. Routines are very comforting to your brain. It helps it to know that it's okay to relax and that there's no need to engage that fight or flight complex that most of us find ourselves in a lot of the time now, even when we don't need to be. And so routines are absolutely vital to your mental health overall. And I think of routines as prevention and maintenance, um, even on a day when you feel like, hey, I'm feeling pretty good mentally, you guys got to still do that routine because that's partially what's helping you to feel good all the time. And so I like to do a very simple morning routine. And again, even on your busiest days, this routine can be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes in the morning. But I try to spend 5 minutes reading something inspirational,
Mm.
5 minutes journaling about something. It could be a gratitude journal where basically you're just writing down 3 things you're grateful for, or maybe you can journal to a prompt. And if you don't know what to journal about, if you like find free journaling a little daunting, then there's plenty of prompts out there that you can just journal to, like a certain question to reflect upon. And again, 5 minutes or less. And then I spend 5 minutes doing something healthy for my body. That could just be drinking a glass of water. It could be walking around the block. It could be doing some simple stretches, right? But just with those 3 things, and as you can see, it can be as little as 15 minutes, it really sets up your mind on a really positive and balanced path for the rest of the day because you woke up doing these things to set yourself up for success the rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Routine is really important for me. I know that. I get up, do my shower, admittedly go right to the espresso machine, then hit the floor for the yoga. So I'll tell you, I have been lately for my morning inspiration, been watching your podcasts.
Oh, thank
No,
you.
seriously, you have so many good things, and you have a lot of good shorts on there too. Then go just keep going and going and going. But I'll have a link to that in the episode description here, folks, on all the platforms. All right, so routine, definitely. Journaling, I have to say, is something I have never done, and I
Mhm.
feel like I should be doing it. So thanks for mentioning that. I can use that.
Yeah.
Before we go to break in about 1 minute, um, do you have any, what we'll talk about when we get back? I'd like to dig into the importance of social connections because we know that, especially as we age, but really at all ages, it seems that for most of us, I think there may be exceptions out there, but for most of us, this social connection is so important.
Yeah.
And it can play a real vital role in our emotional and mental health, which really is connected with our physical health too, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to talk more about that because I think that's something that's often neglected. And there are sometimes people who say, well, I'm kind of a loner anyway, or I don't mind being by myself. It's not really a big deal. But I'd love to dig into that more because that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
great, great. Well, I'll tell you what, with that said, we're going to head out to our first break. We're going to come back and talk more with Dr. Judy Ho. We have so much to get to. This is Your Health Matters on 570 WSYR. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Are you ready to unlock your brain's full potential? Introducing the Brain Speed Ball, the revolutionary fun game designed to enhance balance, focus, memory, mental clarity, and cognitive performance. Whether you're looking to stay sharp, boost productivity, or slow down cognitive decline as you age, the Brain Speed Ball is the solution you've been waiting for. Through scientifically backed games, exercises, activities, and strategies, this program engages your mind, strengthens neural pathways, and helps you think clearer, faster, and smarter. Perfect for professionals, students, and anyone committed to lifelong mental fitness, the Brain Speed Ball helps you stay ahead in today's fast-paced world. Best of all, starting at approximately $30, it won't break the bank to take the first step toward a sharper, more vibrant mind. Visit karlsterling.com and go to the Sponsors tab today and discover how the Brain Speed Ball can help you achieve your mental best. That's karlsterling.com, Karl with a K. Brain Speed Ball, because a brighter mind means a brighter future. Are you ready to take control of your health and feel your best? At Neuromotor Training, we specialize in helping you move better, think sharper, and stay independent for life. Our unique programs are designed to reduce your risk of falls, improve movement and mobility, boost memory and cognition, and enhance fine motor and multitasking skills. And here's the best part. We're the only clinic with a program proven to reverse osteoporosis with our state-of-the-art biodensity machine. Imagine stronger bones and a more confident you. At Neuromotor Training, your health and independence are our top priorities. Visit us at karlsterling.com or call 315-935-7488 to schedule your first session. That's 315-935-7488. Don't wait to take the next step toward a healthier, happier you. Neuromotor Training, where better health begins.
And we're back. This is Your Health Matters, and we're with Dr. Judy Ho today. She's helping us to really educate us in ways that we've never talked about before on this show since I took over back in January. It's almost a year. And this is really insightful to me. So let's talk about this. I'll just give you a little background here. So I have a clinic here near Syracuse, New York called Neuromotor Training, right? And we help a lot of people with different issues from bone density, to issues to movement, memory, cognitive rehabilitation, improving those things, balance, fall reduction, all kinds of things, strength, weight loss, whatever it is, building muscle. But our clientele is 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And one of the things we know is this has become a place, thankfully, where people do come and they connect with others. And what I've seen a lot, especially, we happen to have a lot of widows who come in, they're alone. This social thing is so important. Why is it so important? And how can it benefit us to make these connections? And how does it help us with longevity? Because there's a direct correlation with longevity and social.
Yeah, that definitely is. And I recently just watched this great show on Netflix that made me think about this. I don't know if you've heard of it, Karl, but it's called A Man on the Inside with Ted Danson.
No.
Oh my gosh. So essentially the show, it's hilarious. Basically, he's a retiree who just lost his spouse to dementia complications. And he's kind of just living this life. It's kind of ho-hum. And his daughter basically says, hey, I challenge you to do something out of the box, And he ends up signing up to be a private investigator's assistant and infiltrates a elderly community, like a community-based living. So it's not like these are all very like vibrant people who are doing well, but they're in 60s and up. And essentially a big theme that they tackle is loneliness and how what kills people generally is not a physical ailment directly. It's the negative impacts of feeling pervasively lonely. And so anyway, but the show is great because it's really tackling these more serious existential concepts in a fun way. And I love Ted Danson. So I really enjoyed the show. But it just
out. Yeah.
What's it just made again? It's called A Man on the Inside. Yeah. Okay. It's on the top 10 list right now for Netflix. It's doing really well. And I'm like so happy to see that he's thriving in his 70s.
That's great.
Yeah. But essentially, loneliness leads to a whole host of mental and physical health outcomes that end up not only possibly causing premature death, but also just decreases people's quality of life. So there's been a number of studies on loneliness in recent years that talk about how when people feel chronically lonely, they are at a higher risk for heart diseases, for obesity, for diabetes, for depression, for anxiety, for poor health outcomes across the board. And that is because as human beings, we are evolutionarily and biologically wired to need connection. So even if you think of yourself as, well, I'm not that much of a people person, or I'm not so outgoing, or I'm kind of a recluse, right? Like people put these labels on themselves, but nevertheless, you are still part of the human race, and all human beings require connection so that our nervous systems aren't constantly thinking that we have to be in survival mode. Being in connected relationships helps us to relax, to feel supported, to feel like we can essentially do the things that we want without a lot of fear. And all of that is just biological. So even if you're somebody who doesn't need 30 best friends, you need the 1 or 2 best friends. You need those 2 or 3 important connections. And I think that's what's most important, is that the connections are quality connections. Because there are people who tell me all the time, well, I'm around people all the time. I even live with several people, and yet I feel lonely all the time, right? So loneliness is not about how many people you surround yourself with. It's a subjective experience of, do I feel like there's somebody in the world who cares about me or not? That's really what the most important thing is.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So I can just imagine that. Well, we were talking recently about this heart brain thing, this heart set of neurons, the neurites is what they're described as, is almost like its own brain and its own has its own ability to make decisions, and like when you feel things, and that when there's loneliness, this area of the heart, these 40,000 neurites, as they call them. Are you familiar with this?
No, but tell me more about it. This is
So
really
it just
interesting.
well, I'll just real briefly because I want to focus on you. But this whole set of neurites, and the way it connects with the brain through vagus nerve and other things, it's a feeling mechanism, and it has a memory to it. So, like for example, a traumatic experience doesn't just happen and you remember it cognitively, in your brain. This can be in the heart brain too, as is loneliness too. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because the people I've known through the years who are extremely lonely,
Hmm.
they often have an empty feeling in their chest and in their heart, and I can only imagine that maybe that's part of what's happening, and that's not good for your health.
No, definitely not. And that whole feeling of emptiness, it's associated with a lot of different things. Sometimes people, when they are depressed, they say that that's how they feel. Or sometimes when people have gone through a lot of trauma, they say that's how they feel. But like you said, whatever that is tied to, there's probably both a psychological and a physical element to that. Uh, it's not a good feeling. And it's kind of I believe that it's a precursor for essentially a type of existential crisis, because you're constantly searching for something to fill that void. And sometimes that search leads you to unhealthy coping behaviors, because in a temporary, they feel like really easy to do, right? So
Yeah.
any kind of avoidance strategy, essentially, like drinking too much, using too much drug, like even working on a project incessantly to block out your negative feelings. I mean, all those things in the temporary makes you feel a little bit of a relief because it distracts you from that. But at the end of the day, it actually creates more problems.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure neurochemically, maybe dopamine's kicking in for, if it's the drink, the drug, or the immediate gratification from the project or something, being obsessive about it. But
Right.
yeah, well, I've been there with the drinking part. You all know that who listens, so we've talked about that a lot. How about this? You're 55, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. You've got these negative thought patterns. And of course, I'm asking a question 1 minute before we need to go to break. But you know what? This could be a good lead in for when we get back. I have found it's really interesting about what people believe about themselves, their capabilities in any way, shape, or form, whether it's mental, emotional, social, physical, anything. And these negative thought patterns that are so hard to break out of, having been there myself, and still there's some things I'm trying to break loose. With 30 seconds left, do you have anything to say? And then we'll continue when we come back from a break.
Yeah, negative thought patterns are so common. And there are a lot of great strategies on how to work with this. So can't wait to dig into this more. But I actually just recently gave a TED talk about this. So I love talking about negative self-talk. So let's get into it when we get back.
Oh, great. Okay. Perfect. I'm so glad we're going to talk about this because it's so relevant for so many people. So we're going to break, folks. This is Your Health Matters. We're with Dr. Judy Ho. This is fantastic. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Are you ready to take your health and fitness to the next level in just minutes per day? I want to introduce you to the Power Plate, We have 5 power plates in my clinic, and it's a revolutionary fitness tool designed to transform lives and bodies. With its cutting-edge whole-body vibration technology, PowerPlate activates warm muscles, increases circulation, and improves flexibility, all while reducing strain on your joints. So whether you're looking to build strength, boost endurance, or speed up recovery, PowerPlate is the game changer you need. It's backed by scientific research. It delivers results quickly, making it the perfect solution for anyone from the elite athlete to the everyday fitness enthusiast. You can get a full body workout in just 15 minutes. So go to karlsterling.com, Karl with a K. Go to the sponsors tab, scroll down, click on PowerPlate and check it out.
Okay, folks, we're back. We're talking with Dr. Judy Ho. This is so fascinating. Okay, let's get into this negative thought pattern, because this really is, well, like you say, it's so common, and I'm no expert on it, but I just know that it's common. So, and I've kind of been there and had to break these patterns. There's still a couple more I need to break, but why is this so common, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, negative self-talk is a way that your brain tries to protect itself. And so sometimes we are so quick to judge ourselves for these types of thoughts and, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? And of course, that leads to just even more negative self-talk. But you have to know that it's actually just your brain trying to protect you. And sometimes it goes overboard. And for some of us, we struggle with it more than other people. But essentially, the negative self-talk is a way for your brain to try to see any kind of potential emotional or physical dangers in advance. It's trying to prevent you from getting into a catastrophe. But I think that nowadays, what's happening is people are spending a lot of time in negative self-talk, entertaining things that will almost never come true, right? So if you think back to caveman days, hey, if you're thinking about the next bear that might eat you, that might actually happen, right? But for most of us now, that's not really a common scenario, and yet your brain is still on high alert. And so I do want to just say that negative self-talk is something that is just quintessential to the human experience. It is universal. But if you find that it's really holding you back, then it's time to do something about it. And the first part of being able to disengage from the negative self-talk is, one, just to have compassion for yourself, that it's not a defect, it's actually your brain trying to protect you. So even just having that quick appreciation for your brain, like, hey, I know that this is a protective mechanism. Thank you, but no thank you. Even just that quick reminder is a good start.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking here that the older we get, if we don't address these things, the more ingrained they are in our system and our brain and our soul, almost like our way of thinking, our habitual way of thinking, which I find interesting when we look at brain imaging of people and thought patterns. There was some out of MIT, I know. I'm sure it's in other places too, but when we're really trying to practice new thought patterns around the arena of, let's say, self-belief, belief in oneself, capabilities, possibilities, which possibilities, just say, that and potential, the brain actually can develop new, let's say, neural connections. It's like neuroplasticity kicks in it. You're not just learning a language or a skill, you're learning a new way to think. But
Yes.
as we get older, it seems like the other the other connections are so strong and reinforced that, do you have any particular, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. Is there any specific example you could give that you think might be helpful for people in general, and maybe not for everybody, but like on a large scale of people, something they can do that might help them to get rid of the old, build the new super high way of positive neural connections, thought-wise?
Yeah, definitely. And so I think, one thing to remember is that it's not really about positive thinking all the time. Because first of all, that's impossible.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's unrealistic. So the key is actually to have balanced thinking. So the next time you catch yourself having a negative thought, and the easiest way actually to catch your negative thoughts is to notice your emotions, because a lot of times our thoughts are just kind of percolating in the back of our minds, and we don't actually know what's going on until, oh, there's a negative emotion we don't like. Or maybe we do something that we're like, oh man, why did I do that? Like, why did I just react in that way? So I like to tell people just to learn to rewind the tape. Like, rewind the tape. Once you've noticed this action you didn't like or this feeling that you didn't like, rewind the tape in your head and say, what was I thinking just before I noticed this? And that's how you catch your negative thoughts, because a thought always precedes your feelings and your actions. Once you identify what that thought is, I have a really quick 3-step process to try to, again, set up these more positive and more balanced neural connections. So the first step is just to ask yourself, what's the evidence for and against this thought, right? Like, because we have this negative thought and we immediately assume that it's true. But if you were to kind of almost be like a jury in a court case, it's like, well, what's the evidence for and what's the evidence against? And really think about what's the true evidence for this thought being true. And if there is any, a lot of times there isn't. And then what's the evidence that it's actually not true? And most of the time people will come up with things in both columns, right? And then the next step is to create a new thought that's more balanced. And I like to use the yes, but formula. So yes, acknowledge something that isn't going well. And then but acknowledge something that either is going well or is in progress. So yes, I didn't finish this project again, but I did make some progress on this project over the weekend. And I know that I can do it again if I just had a couple of other days, right? So it's really just about being able to come up with a more balanced thought that is more realistic. That's really important.
Well,
And
I like that a lot because it puts you, it can segue into a positive thing, right? You're coming
exactly.
from, well, this didn't happen, story of my life. Well, used to anyways. And then, trying to really but this is going well. Okay, good. So I feel a little
Right.
bit better about myself. I can give myself a little more self-compassion, which is important. That's another area that I find lacking too. I'll tell you, let's hit on this before our last break. Caregivers. So we have a lot of people who are caregivers who are, bringing the person here or whatever. Man, they get hit so hard with under-recognized, first of all, underappreciated by a lot of people. Not saying everybody, but, overall, depression rate on them. Last I knew, and this is like 5 years ago, 70% of caregivers get depression of some type, and they're really not taking care of themselves because they can't make the time for it, or they don't make the time for it, or they're tired, and then they get into this negative self-thought too.
Yeah.
Any advice you want to give in the caregiver front?
Yeah, definitely. Caregivers, I think that there's such a burden and it's hard to talk about it because they're taking care of somebody who they perceive as more needy than them, more sick than them.
Sure.
And so they don't want to complain. And that actually makes it even harder because you feel bad about complaining, but you can't pour from an empty well, right? And I think that is the most important thing to remember is that if you don't take care of yourself mentally and physically, you can't do all the things that you want to do for this loved one that you're taking care of. So your own mental wellness is absolutely paramount to not only your role as a caregiver, but also to your own longevity. So you have to start rethinking how much to prioritize your own wellness.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if we don't take care of ourselves, as I say often on the show, I do my best to take care of myself. But I have a little story about that before we go to our last break, so that I can be more for the clients, patients who come in here, and for my family, and for my grandchildren who I get to chase around, and it's a ball. It's so much fun. But the first time, well, I had to cancel on you back in October, and it just happened to be that we were going to be talking the day before my mom passed away, and I canceled because I knew the end was imminent. Now, I can tell you that in this past 6-7 weeks, whatever it's been, I have not exercised until yesterday because I couldn't get into it. Too emotional, too many things going on, trying to find my mojo to even do anything at all. And I tell you, this has to do with taking care of myself. Okay. First of all, Mom would not want me to not exercise.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like she's watching because there are all kinds of signs. First of all, thank you, Mom. And the other thing is, when I hit the gym yesterday and did what I do, and man, and I did today because I rejoined our local Y up on River Road, right? It's a great place. So man, it's like I have all this energy today, don't I? I have all this energy yesterday and today.
Mm,
I feel vibrant. I feel so good. It's like our muscles and our brain, our body is like a human pharmacy of neurochemicals that they come alive when we start moving and doing things, but taking care of ourselves is so important physically, mentally, emotionally. So for
yeah.
listeners, I've been talking about this a little bit, but I wanted to say this has been my experience the past 6 or 7 weeks. Don't go, don't go without taking care of yourself, folks. Get doing the physical stuff because it's going to make everything better. I can't
Mhm.
even tell you how much better I feel. So with that said, we're going to break. We'll be back for one more segment with our very special guest, Dr. Judy Ho. Stay tuned. Be right back.
Are you ready to strengthen your body, improve your bone density, and take control of your health? Meet biodensity, the revolutionary technology that transforms the way we build strength and fight against bone loss. With just one session a week, biodensity helps you safely apply high levels of force to your bones and muscles, stimulating natural growth and improvement. It's scientifically backed, non-invasive system proven to increase bone density, build type 2 muscle fibers, lower A1C, and reduce fall risks. Whether you're recovering from an injury, managing osteoporosis, or simply looking to maintain a strong, healthy body, biodensity is for you. Best of all, it's quick, efficient, and perfect for people of all fitness levels. Don't let age or health concerns hold you back. Experience the difference biodensity can make in your life. Visit karlsterling.com and go to the sponsors tab to learn more and schedule your session today. That's karlsterling.com. Biodensity, because stronger bones means a stronger you.
All right, we're back with Dr. Judy Ho. And Dr. Judy, this is it's been great having you with me here. I appreciate this so much. You're an expert in so many arenas when it comes to, brain and psychology and all these different things, forensics. And I'm curious to know, as we age, what can we do that will help to support memory and cognition, right? Because this is something that a lot of people are worried about, who maybe they don't really need to be worrying about as much as they do yet, but the fact they're thinking about it is good. But preventively speaking, like, what can we do?
Yeah. Well, the most important thing is to keep your brain active. And it doesn't have to be through something that is academic. Sometimes people say, oh, well, I don't want to go back to school. It's like, that's not really what it's about, but it's really about keeping your brain stimulated. And this is a great time to try a new hobby, learn a new skill, uh, try out a new language, try a new music instrument, try something artsy and creative. You've never done that, or if you used to do it and you haven't done it in a long time. The most important thing is that you keep your brain active, because part of the reason why we are able to keep our brains healthy is to have as much stimulation as possible. And the problem, of course, when people age, not only the biological mechanism of aging, it's also just the fact that when people retire, they do less with their brains in general,
Yeah.
right? So it's about keeping it as active as you can. And even things like mental health care activities, meditation, doing deep breathing, believe it or not, those are very helpful, stimulating activities for your brain too. So it can really run the gamut in terms of how we can protect our brains. And then eating well.
Yeah, I was
Eating
hoping you'd say
healthy.
that.
Yeah, there's actually several like kind of brain boosting foods. It's not that the evidence is so robust, but regardless, it's also consistent with healthy eating. So you can't lose, right? So things like blueberries, dark chocolate. I mean, they're fun things to eat, right? But it's just about making sure you mix that into your daily eating habits. And then being able to have some form of physical activity, whatever makes the most sense for you at your age, and also given any physical limitations you can have. So it doesn't mean that you're running all the time, or, even hiking, or even walking 20 to 30 minutes, but it's just like stretching. Even the fact that you're just moving your body in that way, those are all things that can be very protective to our brains as we get older.
Oh, I'm really glad you said that because, that's something we've talked about a whole lot, haven't we, listeners, on the show? Because we really do need to keep moving. So many benefits come from movement. And as Dr. John Rady from Harvard says, he was on quite a while back, but humans are designed to move. We weren't designed to sit still and on a couch and go to an app and get DoorDash to come and bring us batteries. I mean, It's cool we can do it, though. I really love the tech. We've got to keep moving. Brain and body, like the last words I say of every show. Use your brain, challenge your brain, move your body every single day. Um, how about the finding purpose? Because, there are people who retire. What I've seemed to notice is those who retire, they fall into a couple of camps, just from my observation. This is not like I'm a clinical expert in this. I'm not. But there's the people who know exactly what they want to do and they go out and do it. And then there's the ones who feel lost because their job was their identity to some degree.
Yeah.
How about the finding purpose and passion after retirement?
Yeah. So finding purpose, again, when people are leaving a certain segment of their life, like their work life, there is a sense of grief and loss, especially for people who have identified themselves closely with those achievements. So I think that the most important way to find purpose is actually to do a values checkup. So you're probably used to checking things off, doing projects and all these goals, but values are different. Values are things that you want to live your life by. They're things that you can't check off the list, but they're things that you can decide whether or not to move in the direction of at any given time. So there's thousands of them, but essentially they could be things like community or spirituality or adventure, right? So you never really have too much community. It's like, it's something that you want to keep doing. And if you're not sure what kind of values are out there, you can just look up values card sort or values exercise. There's a lot of free resources out there if you look on the internet. I also have some at my website, so you can also check it out there. And then pick your top 5 values that apply to you. And then start brainstorming what activity or activities would nurture each of these values. So if I say that I want that adventure is a top value, well, what's something I could do maybe today or in this next week that would help me to live out this value, even if it's just a little bit? And so when you start to do it that way, you can start to identify the kinds of activities that are going to be the most nourishing to you and also are going to be the most important to you to finding meaning again.
Yeah, great advice. Really great advice. And so I'm tail end baby boomer, born in 61, and that era started in 46 and went to 64. There's a lot of us. Sure, in your profession, you must see a lot of boomers, right?
Yeah.
So you run into this constantly. Yeah. It's really interesting. I think we're in an interesting, I'm kind of just going off of just stream of consciousness at the moment because we've gone over the things that are on my list of questions. But if you think about all the possibility out there right now, people are creating new jobs. We have a guy who was coming in, I've got to check in with him, see how he's doing. But, he retired from a long career and started like a forensics business. He's 76 years old and he's busier than he's ever been in his life. And he looks younger, he acts younger if you know what I mean. And
Mm-hmm.
he just every day, man, go, and he loves it. And that's the other thing too, is he loves what he does.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So there's so many different things to do out there. Seems like there's no shortage of possibilities.
Exactly. And I don't want anybody to feel like they're limited because of their age or their physical condition. Like, really, there's so many ways that you can find purpose. I'm so glad that you gave that example, that you could be living your best life in your 70s. That's so cool. I think that is what's going on with my mother-in-law, actually. She's 80. She's going to be 82 soon. And I really believe she is living her best life right now. I mean, she has generally good health and she's just, being adventurous and spending her time in different ways, doing art. So anyway, I just love that. And I love hearing stories like that.
Well, that's exciting to hear you say that too, because I think, again, there's so many things that are open to us now. There's so much, even with artificial intelligence, which I just happen to love and find totally fascinating. I use it every single day for something, mostly writing and coming up with things and ideas, but I love it. So, folks, I have good news. While this is the last quarter and we are going to go to the end of the hour here in about a minute, the good news is we're going to do overtime with Dr. Judy. So if you go to karlsterling.com or karlsterling.net, either place, you can go and you're going to hear the rest of what we talk about at those places because it'll be on Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. And so, Dr. Judy, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, first of all. Really appreciate you making the time for us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been great to speak with you, and I hope that this has been valuable to your listeners.
I'm sure they're going to love it. And so, folks, go to karlsterling.net, karlsterling.com. And by the way, as I always say, if you have questions, call me up, text me, 315-935-7488. This is Your Health Matters. You're listening to 570 WSYR, also available on 106.9 FM. We'll be back next week with another show. But until then, use your brain and challenge your brain, move your body every single day. We're going to overtime. See you next week.
Are you looking for a way to boost your mental clarity, sharpen your focus, and support brain health? I want to introduce you to a product I've been taking for well over a year, and that is the Dr. Lewis Daily Brain Care Formula, an all-natural solution designed to help you unlock your brain's full potential. It's packed with ingredients proven to enhance memory, support cognitive function, and protect against mental decline. So whether you're looking to stay sharp at the office, improve your concentration, or just looking to keep your mind active as you age, this formula is for you. It's backed by science, it's trusted by thousands, and it's never been easier to nourish your mind from the inside out. Don't wait to take control over your brain health. Get the clarity and focus you deserve today with the Dr. Lewis Daily Brain Care Formula. Go to karlsterling.com, that's Karl with a K. Go to the sponsors tab, scroll down, click, and check it out.
All right, we are in overtime here, and today we had with us Dr. Judy Ho. So this has been a fascinating conversation and very enlightening. We never talked about this before on my show. So, you do, first of all, I want to talk about your book. Let's make sure we talk about the book. Please tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely. So the book is called The New Rules of Attachment, and it's all about healing insecure attachment styles that oftentimes come from our childhood experiences so that you can thrive at any stage of life.
I love it. And they can buy that. Your website is drjudyho.com, right?
Yes.
drjudyho.com.
Yeah.
And then probably most of the book platforms. Is it there?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see a bunch of the book platforms there right on my website. A lot of people like using Amazon. It's there in a lot of different formats, including audiobook, which is one that I read. So
give us a little snippet from the book, if you don't mind. What is a new rule of attachment?
I think a lot of people think that these childhood experiences that they've had, these stresses and traumas that they've experienced as children, that nothing's ever going to change and they just have to manage it throughout their life. And the idea is that you can heal at any age in your life. And even if the people who might have caused you harm, whether on purpose or inadvertently, aren't available to do the healing work with you, you can heal from within by relying on yourself and your ability to learn new strategies for well-being at any age.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I've in my head gone through so many different things that happened to me when I was a kid. Compared to a lot of people, it's really nothing. But I did find that those situations were replaying in my head and becoming part of me telling me that I wasn't worthy of whatever because of what happened, or something like, oh, you'll never be able to do it. You're never going to amount to. Oh man, well, geez, I'm glad they're not right. Finally figured that one out.
Right. Exactly.
That wasn't even in my family. Those were some teachers, right? So yeah, family, that was different stuff.
Right.
But I've found in my own way, I've been very blessed, very fortunate, hard work too, but gone very well. You've done a lot of work as an expert witness. And I'm wondering if you have anything in that arena that you're able to share with us, because first of all, I find it really interesting that there's even a possibility that anyone can be an expert witness. And it's interesting because I know a few people who are expert witnesses, but not in your field. What do you experience there that you're able to share?
Well, I think that it's so important to know how we can collaborate with other professionals, and doing expert witness work allows me to work with a lot of different professionals, from attorneys to judges to jury consults to psychiatrists and neurologists. And so I actually love being able to all put our heads together in a way that hopefully is beneficial, and in this case, beneficial to the legal system, which I think most of us probably take completely for granted in America, but it is. Despite its flaws, it's one of the best legal systems in the world. So I enjoy the ability to be able to serve that system.
Yeah, that's good. Can you describe for me just, and I'm sorry, I almost feel kind of ridiculous for asking this, but I find the word neuropsychologist to be super interesting. Now, in the world that I've been working for many, many years, especially, I'm known for, if you will, like, I'm not trying to impress anybody, I'm known for my work in Parkinson's, helping to manage disease symptoms, slow disease progression. I'm not a doctor, but therapist, whatever, educator. I traveled all over the world many times teaching this. And one of the things that I run into sometimes is a person who's a neuropsychologist, and their description of like what they do is helping the person with the movement disorder, for example, um, maybe get through the mental, emotional struggles that they may deal with. Because depression is that's the number one non-motor symptom in Parkinson's statistically anyways. So there's a lot to do there. And they'll find maybe a neuropsychologist and help them out. But in your arena, how do you describe your neuropsychologist?
Well, I think it's a person who specializes in the brain behavior connection. So anything from brain health to identifying issues with the brain, like traumatic brain injuries or any other kind of neurodegenerative disorders or developmental disorders like autism and ADHD. And then also just sorting out complex diagnoses. Yeah, many of my patients actually, they've just gotten the wrong diagnoses over the years. So it's been really helpful for them to be able to speak with me and to be able to work with me so they can get the right diagnoses at the end of the day.
So that get into it all to habitual like thinking habits?
Yes,
Sounds like it does.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
I love it. And so I won't keep it much longer here because I know you got construction starting up over there soon, and I have to go fairly soon too. But you're a associate professor at Pepperdine University. Can I ask, what do you teach there?
Yeah, I teach clinical psychology. I teach neuropsychology. I teach social psychology,
Whoa.
treatment with adolescents and children. So I mean, there's a lot of classes that I teach. I've been there for over 14 years.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So when I was back in school a few years ago, sociology and psychology, two courses in each, one of my favorites. I just love them so much. Well, Dr. Judy, thank you so much for joining. I really, really appreciate you joining us, making this time and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Carl. Really enjoyed talking with you.
You as well. And for our listeners, thank you again for putting us at the top of the charts and keeping us, listening to us. I really appreciate that you're tuning in. And, we love bringing you expert guests like Dr. Judy and just learning more about what it takes to live healthier and live longer, more health span within the lifespan. So with that said, folks, we'll be back next week. This is Karl Sterling, News Radio 570 WSYR. Have a great week. See you soon.